Well, hello everybody. This week's lecture is on thinking and language, or in psychology, we call thinking cognition, which includes all those mental processes that we use every day for our thinking and planning, evaluating, all those lovely things. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started here and share my screen. So here we go. Oop, that's the last page. We want to be on the first page. Nope, and I did it wrong already. Let's try again. Okay, let's see if I can get it from the beginning. Nope, wrong again. Okay. Oh, mercy. All right, this one, share. All right, so slideshow. Boy, oh boy, it's not letting me do it. Ah, there it is. Okay. So hopefully you guys are seeing that on your screen. So again, this week's lecture is on thinking and language. Sorry, it took a minute to get there, but hey, we got there. So obviously we're going to be talking about thinking and language, or cognition, language and thought. So we talk about what is cognition. Basically, it's all those mental processes that we have. That include our emotions, our moods, our thoughts on everything from the weather to how do I look today, to deeper, more meaningful thoughts like what is the purpose and meaning of my life? How do I apply this knowledge to, the skills and abilities that I have now? All of those wonderful things. So the thing that sets us apart really from all other animals when it comes to our ability to think, or to have these cognitive processes, is that we have the ability to do this metacognition process. And meta means beyond. So beyond thinking, beyond the processes of just having thoughts. Metacognition is that I get the opportunity to actually stop and think about my thoughts. So it's really a deeper evaluation of yourself and the world around you, and how you think about all those things. So some concepts to be aware of: mental groupings of similar objects, events, ideas, or people. So we tend to, as we develop, as we grow, and this happens really early on, we generalize things, we lump things into groupings because it's very quick for us to actually make quick mental assessments of, is this dangerous, is this safe, is this something I want to venture into? And those are very quick snap judgments, and they've been there since the beginning of time, since humans were humans, in a way to protect us. The two main priorities of human beings is to survive and reproduce, right? That is the every organism on the planet, that is their purpose, their not necessarily meaning, but it's their purpose, right? It's to propagate the next generation. Of course, as humans, we go a little beyond that, and we assign meaning to our lives, or at least try to, and develop a purpose while we're here in these fleshy bodies. So, in order to keep us safe, in order for that survival to continue, we had to make quick mental groupings of similar objects, events, ideas, people. So, all of these things: a cave is a cave, a bear is a bear. But if you see a bear off in the distance, you might mistake it for a moose, or whatever the case might be, or vice versa. So, we make these generalizations. So we generalize things to understand and apply to real world situations. So this can be as simple as, the example here is, all chairs have a common shape and purpose. So we would not expect to use a chair for cooking. I suppose you could chop it up and use it as some sort of utensil if you wanted to, but we all sort of have this general understanding that certain things are for certain purposes. And it helps us to, again, make quick judgments about, how do we use this thing? What do we do with it? We wouldn't use our car to mow the lawn. It's not a lawnmower. So that just gives you a basic idea. So a prototype, this is the basic concept that helps us make sense of things. So for example, a kitchen chair may be more recognizable and generalized to represent a chair than a picture of an elaborate throne. So many people do have a sense of, they think in pictures, they think in visuals, and some people are much more specific than others. So if I say, we talk about factual or declarative memory, we talk about things like a tree is a tree. If I say the word tree, then you hear tree, you can see a tree. Maybe you visualize the word tree. Maybe you're more auditory and you just hear the sound of a tree and you know what that is. But many people are visual when it comes to this, and some people are very specific. So they actually see a specific tree in a specific place. But more often than not, we have some sort of prototype or general picture or idea of what certain things are. And we kind of lump them into one either scenario or one visual. For instance, this kitchen chair might represent all chairs to you. So, an algorithm. So, when we have more complex issues, problems, some folks like to sort of take things apart, digest them, right? Put them into boxes and then put them back together again. And again, if you're a visual thinker, you might actually visually see little boxes with little ideas or maybe big ideas. But you might actually see these boxes moving around, right? You're manipulating them in a way where you can actually solve problems. For other folks, it's very, maybe it's verbal. Maybe you're a verbal communicator, you're auditory, and you like to talk things out. Maybe you're a social learner, right? And you actually have to talk it out with somebody else or in groups of people. Maybe you really like those, the think tanks kind of thing. So these algorithms can be lengthy. However, an algorithm is nothing more than, if you're running a business, it's a business plan. If you're a scientist, right, it's the formula for which you are developing a new chemical or testing chemicals. Or if you're a mathematician, this is the way that you're going to solve for a particular problem or determine how far it is from Earth to the moon. So algorithms can take on many different shapes and forms depending on the problem that you have in front of you. The more elaborate the algorithm is, it tends to be the more thorough the problem solving process and maybe accurate the answer. So keep that in mind. Of course, you don't want to get lost in the weeds if you're developing a business plan or you're trying to figure out certain things using an algorithm. If you go too far, you can kind of get a little out of focus when it comes to this. So but if you've got a specific problem in mind and you're like, I really need to know the distance between here and, the moon or here, and I'm sure we have that listed. You could probably Google that. But you get the idea. So algorithms are very helpful. They're lengthy, a little tedious, and detailed, but much more effective than just, hey, I got this idea. So heuristics is a fantastic, what we call qualitative reasoning process that we use to break down problems and evaluate them and maybe even come up with new theories. So we use this quite a bit in qualitative scientific research. So this is a mental shortcut that allows us, though, to see quickly, make decisions based on personal experience. So heuristics is a process by which the researcher puts themselves in the problem, right? They have personal experience with the problem that they're actually diving into. So don't discount your own experiences or your instinct to get a problem solved or to develop a new theory moving forward. Oftentimes when we get new information, we're like, wait, maybe what I experienced isn't quite what I thought it was, or maybe we can add to this, right? So we call that integration, when we're linking old information or our solid information, declarative, factual information with new information. Like, I've got this new information now. What do I do with it? Is it relevant? Do I toss it out? How does it pair up with what I already know? So that's heuristics. It's really an instinctual way to investigate issues. So insight, a sudden realization of a problem solution. So what a wonderful thing about our ability to think and plan and this amazing brain of ours is oftentimes, if we let things sit, if we sort of retract from the issue for a little while, if we've been dwelling on a problem, oftentimes the solution will come to us when we're not even necessarily actively thinking about it, but your brain's working on it. So if you've got a problem and you've been dealing with maybe it's a financial issue, maybe it's a family issue, whatever the case might be, social interaction issue, and you've been kind of thinking about it, maybe overthinking about it too. We all do that sometimes. And then you retreat, right? And you're just like, I'm just going to let it be. I don't have a solution to this. It's just, I can't do anything about it. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's the answer. I can do this or I can do that. So we've got some sudden resolutions. So these are just some terms that we're going to talk about when it comes to sort of this section of psychology as far as the class goes. So confirmation bias is the tendency to find what you seek, right? Even if the evidence is contrary to obvious reality. We have a lot of confirmation bias going on in our political arena right now. So it's really important to explore every single side of this. Like, what is this, network saying? What does this one say? And maybe you're one of those who's like, I'm turning them all off because they're all ridiculous. Because we tend to get focused in one area, and we don't want to believe that we're wrong in certain things. So we just, what is said, what is written, we tend to only pick out what confirms what we thought we already knew. So that's confirmation bias. Fixation, the inability to see a problem from a new perspective. This happens quite a bit, especially if we get too far into an issue or a problem and we're like, I don't see a way out of this. And all I can do is focus on the problem. Oftentimes the answer is lying outside of this, obviously. If all you're thinking about the problem, then, the solution is obviously not in the problem. It's going to be outside of the problem. Intuition, that's an effortless, immediate, automatic feeling or thought, as contrasted with explicit conscious reasoning. So what that means is my gut is telling me, I need to do this, or I need to do that, or don't do this. You know what? Don't hook up with that person, or don't go to that school. I'm going to pick this other school. And there's not necessarily a conscious or what we call explicit. So that's in our present awareness, right? It doesn't make sense. Maybe on paper, it says, hey, I'm going to go to school A because on paper, it's got all of these things that are really cool. But school B, for some reason, my intuition is telling me I need to go there, right? So these two things conflict with one another. So, and sometimes not. Sometimes your intuition is follows your conscious reasoning as well, but sometimes it doesn't. So follow your gut. We were given our gut, our intuition, our felt sense for a reason. So, and again, we go back to those primary reasons why we're, or the primary purpose of every organism to survive and reproduce. So, if our gut's telling us one thing, it's usually rooted in experience, and your body knows. So vivid imagery can make things seem more profound than they really are. So if you watch a lot of social media on negative things like school shootings or war, oftentimes these things can erase or diminish critical thinking. So when we experience an upheaval in emotion, especially fear, it wipes out the prefrontal cortex ability to actually plan and evaluate and think logically and say, okay, is this really as big as it seems, or is it just as big as it seems because social media is putting it out there? Mainstream media is putting it out there. Why? Because it gets people to watch, it gets them to sell. So, follow the money. It's basically the answer for everything these days is follow the money. And if you see some discrepancies there, really ask yourself, what's the data on this? Are there really more school shootings now than there were 10 years ago? Is there more violence? Is there less? Is there, casualties of war? All of these things. So do the data, but do it from a very objective point of view, instead of immersing yourself in an emotional state, because again, it wipes out critical thinking. So belief perseverance, the adherence to one's beliefs after they've been contradicted. So to overcome this, consider the opposite. This is kind of, again, when we're talking about confirmation bias. Right. So this belief perseverance. So I've got this, I'm going to look for, or I'm only going to recognize what I think I already know. That's like confirmation bias. And then now that I have this new information, I'm like, that's crap. I'm not going to believe it. Right. So I'm just going to go with what I think I already know because that's my belief. That's my, I'm putting my head in the sand and this is where we're at because that new information says something different. And I don't want to believe that it could be possibly different. I don't want to examine that. So it's actually a very immature way of thinking. When we don't evaluate all sides of things or do our homework on the back end to actually confirm whether or not something is true, right? We've got this whole big word now, misinformation, that has come out. But it's up to you to actually determine what's accurate and what isn't. And, I dare say that I don't think anything that we receive is fully accurate from any side. So, evaluating what you need to evaluate to say, you know what, am I being objective here, or am I putting all my eggs in one basket, so to speak? So framing, the way we frame things within the context of our own perspective. So this can be a powerful persuasion tool. The way we present our case. So for example, if we want to sell more iPhones, we will appeal to the features it has to help cultivate community, not the dangers of instant communication with strangers. So the way we present things, the way they are framed, it all matters. And here's the thing, the way that we frame things is from our perspective and our experience only. Right? We cannot put our minds into the mind of somebody else and go, oh, I totally get it. I understand the entire experience of their life too. It doesn't work that way. So again, in order to accurately display things, and in order to accurately evaluate things, the way we frame things is very important. But again, if you're in marketing, this is a great thing to do, right? You better know your customer. So you frame it in a way that it seems beneficial for them. So there you go. So creative thinking, creativity is the ability to produce new and valuable ideas. So we don't all necessarily start out with a great deal of creativity. And some do, right? So some, we've got this idea of lateralization. Each part of the brain, the left and the right lobe, each have their designated, if you will, functions, and creativity happens to be more on the right side. So if you're a right-sided thinker, creativity, you're sort of genetically prone to more creative thought and production. Perhaps that is the case, but the more information that we learn and apply to the information we already know, again, the integration part, right? We're taking what we already know with new information and we create new things, we innovate new things, right? We solve for problems this way. So the more that we're able to do that, to add new ideas, the more creativity we can implement. So convergent thinking is narrowing the available problem solutions to determine the best possible solution. So if you've got an issue ahead of you and you've like, I've got this plan and I've got this plan, which one is the best one? That's convergent thinking, right? So it might even include, again, that integration part, saying, I got a little bit of this going on and I know that this would probably work, but I need something additional, right? So I need some new information to make this the best possible solution. Divergent thinking is expanding the number of possibilities for any given problem, and creative thinking that diverges into different directions. So if you have an issue, if you've ever created a mind map, these are super fun, by the way. You ever created a mind map, and if you're in my class, you have or you will. So it begins with generally you in the middle, right? So we create social mind maps, but this can be for anything. This can be for starting a business. This can be for writing a book. And you put the problem or the idea, the thing that you want to create, in the center. And then you spin off all of the things that are required for you to make that happen, or how are they connected? And then how can you connect all of those sub factors, if you will, together in a way that's what we call cohesive. They're all working towards the same aim. So divergent thinking can be a really great way to come up with some creative solutions to a problem. If you've got a really difficult problem ahead of you, if you want to start a business but you're completely broke, it's possible, but you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to start creating many different avenues of how is that going to happen. All right, so creativity has five components according to, I believe this is Steenberg here. Let me move this. Yes, Steenberg. So one, expertise. So the ability to not just have skills and abilities, but to be able to teach others. So when we get to a level of expertise or mastery, that means that we've gotten to a level where we can actually take what we know and teach others how to do what we're doing, how to think how we think, how to create how we create. So that is expertise. Number two, imaginative thinking skills. So again, having that creativity requires curiosity. So when it comes to also because it kind of connects with well-being as well. So when we talk about well-being, we talk about creativity, intuition, curiosity, open-mindedness. All of these things go together, and of course they all play a role in creativity. So a venturesome, a determined personality. So not just curious, but you know what, I'm going to do this, like I've got this. Some people are more intrinsically motivated than others. So intrinsic motivation really has a lot more to do with it's coming from the inside, but personality and temperament plays a big role in this. So about 60% of your personality is formed genetically, right? And then the rest is actually influenced by environment, by who you're around, what you're around, the social situations you're in, the school you go to, the community you grow up in, the nation you are a part of. All of those things shape and form your genetic predisposition for your personality and temperament. Okay. So, and then of course, number five, a creative environment. So it's really important that we provide ourselves, and if we're responsible for others, if we've got little ones, really, really important that we provide an environment that allows for independence and curiosity, right? So a level of autonomy, you can explore your world. And of course, little ones need boundaries in those explored worlds. But you can explore those worlds in a way that you can create, you can innovate and not be shamed for it. So those are the five components to creativity. So problem solving with heuristics, as mentioned earlier, I love this process of qualitative research. So the process is, it's laid out for you. So that initial engagement means that you've actually had experience in this present problem or experience, and you're like, either it's a problem and you want to solve for the problem, or it's not necessarily a problem, but maybe you want to improve on something. Maybe you want to dive deeper into a certain phenomenon and go like, why is this particularly happening? Or what are the factors or components of this phenomenon? And then that's what we call the immersion process. So you dive really deep into the phenomenon. It usually includes doing interviews with other people who've experienced a similar phenomenon. So and this could be a very unique career. This could be, NBA basketball players, like what sets them apart from everybody else. And then incubation. So this was the retreat part that I was telling you about. So oftentimes when we're faced with an issue, or we dive deep into something and we're like, I don't get it, I don't see the connection between A, B, C, D. What happens is when we go into incubation, when we go into that retreat, it allows for our brain to just go, oh, right, just relax for a minute, take a beat, and then we go into something called illumination. These are the aha moments, the new innovations, and these can be really, really rewarding. But if we don't allow ourselves to retreat for a little while, to have those aha moments, it can be very, very frustrating, because we're pushing, when really all we need to do is relax. And then explication. So we write or tell the results. We make known the solution. We're like, this is it. And then what we call a creative synthesis. This is rewrite the narrative of the problem or experience with new insight and applied knowledge. This is often where we have psychologists come up with their own theories. Is they're like, oh, we've gotten to this part and we knew this was a problem over here, or we kind of thought that NBA basketball players had a different level of motivation than maybe the general population, and now we know so. So we're actually going to create these new youth programs that will help foster these elements that are included in these NBA players, right? And I'm just making up examples. So we get to actually create new things, but this is the process of innovation, and it's absolutely fun. So if you get a chance to actually do that, it would be amazing. So we're not doing the activity. So language, spoken, written, or signed. So spoken language, we have three components: the phonemes, smallest distinctive sound units in a language; the morphemes, the smallest language units that carry meaning. For example, the word readers has three morphemes: read, er or one who reads, and s, meaning more than one. So these morphemes are the smallest units, right? So phonemes are the sound a, ooh, right? These are the babbling sounds that we hear from babies. The morphemes are when they begin to put these small units together that make meaning. Okay. And then grammar, a set of rules by which language is communicated, allows us to derive meaning from sounds, so semantics, and the order of words, so syntax. So grammar is not just, oh, you know, you've got this crazy teacher who's telling you, you can't put prepositions at the end of a sentence kind of thing. There's actually a set of rules for a reason, because if you rearrange things, it actually changes the meaning, right? You miss commas, it actually changes the meaning of any particular language. Whatever language is experienced is the one that's adopted. So on average, an adult has learned more than 60,000 words, but we only use about 150 to 200 words on any given day. So language development. So receptive language is the ability to receive and perceive language, includes body language and facial expressions. Productive language is the ability to produce words. So by adulthood, our ability to hear, distinguish, and repeat non-native language greatly diminishes. So basically, if you are going to teach someone in your life a new language, right? So if you've got a little one, you're like, we want them to be bilingual or trilingual, chances are you need to start early. If you start later in life, it really, really becomes very difficult, even for high schoolers. So by the time really, about 8, 9 years old, that it starts to diminish from there. So getting them started early on a new language is very good idea. So this is the language development and stages, 0 to 12 months, very little to no language production. So 12 months old, you're usually seeing about 1 word-ish. 18 to 24 months, about 2 words. 24 months to 5 years old, rapid development into sentence structure. So, and obviously a lot of this is it's done by observation and experiencing conversations with adults and other children. So we don't just develop language in a vacuum, it's got to be experienced. By age 7, those who have not been exposed to either a spoken or a signed language lose their ability to master any language. So this is a huge. So by age 7, really, there needs to be a solid ability to understand and process and speak, or provide some sort of language, whether it's sign language or written or verbal. Cochlear implants. So this is vital for infants and children. So it loses its effectiveness the longer one has been deaf without the implants. This is what we call transduction, the ability to receive sound and for that to be transduced or transmitted to areas of the brain where language or auditory sounds are picked up and then translated. So sign language is a complete language system. So language deficits, aphasia is the impairment of language usually caused by left hemispheric damage. either to the Broca's area. So this is the inability to speak, right? So if you've got a difficult time verbalizing or writing or communicating any kind of thoughts or feelings in any significant way, right? Then there's something going on with the Broca's area. The Wernicke's area is that's our ability to understand, to receive and perceive language. So if someone is talking to me and I understand the words that are coming out of their mouth, right, then the Wernicke's area is online. So in another session, we'll actually talk about how the Broca's area gets really diminished or turned off when you are in high states of emotional arousal, so or shutdown. So when it comes to experience of trauma or a significant life event, oftentimes the Broca's area will take a beat. That it'll just kind of be like, I'm shutting down for a while, and it will be either challenging or impossible to actually create language to tell a story around that specific event. And it could be immediately after the event happens or 20 years down the line, there's still an issue creating language around that particular event because at the time the Broca's area was not online. So Benjamin Lee Whorf came up with what he calls linguistic determinism. He basically said language itself shapes a person's basic ideas. So he attributed to everyone's thoughts was directed towards the language that they experience. However, so our more contemporary psychologists think that that's a little too far. The Whorf had a good idea, but it was a little too off the rails, a little too extreme. So linguistic relativism is the language influences the way we think, not language is the way we think. So our contemporary psychologists are more into let's frame this differently. So there you go. So thinking in images. So are you a visual thinker? Do you think of your daily tasks in scenes, right? Do you see yourself working out in the gym? Do you see yourself making breakfast visually? Or do you think these things in your head verbally? Many people do both, but most people tend to pick a lane when it comes to they have a preference for one over the other, whether it's visual or auditory. So do you have to draw out your ideas for others to understand your thoughts, right? Do you have a hard time verbalizing things, but you can draw it out just fine? Do you see details before you see the whole picture? So this is very interesting. If you go into your office, right, do you see a giant mess or do you say, nope, I know exactly where my paperwork is? Where other people might see and are like, oh my gosh, that's seriously messy. And I'm like, no, I know exactly where everything is. We're good. So when a word is spoken, do you see a specific item or a generalized version? So earlier we talked about the chair. And if you see a specific chair, you might be more of a visual thinker relative to just sort of a general chair. So improving your language and thinking ability. So implicit, what we call implicit memory is automatic. It's way down deep in that unconscious level of your memory banks. And it comes about through rehearsal. Rehearsal consolidates information. So when we talk about rehearsal, we're talking about repetition. We're talking about creating associations and meaning in a way that really encodes or consolidates that information. So when we did our session on memory, we talked quite a bit about this as well. So rehearsal consolidates that information into autonomic or automatic recall and retrieval. So the use of visual representation to practice or rehearse a skill, ability, or new knowledge that you've learned or that you want to learn is a really good way to actually solidify the network in your brain, in your mind, right? So all those neural networks are working together. I'm sure you've heard the term, what fires together, wires together, right? So when you begin to associate one thing with another, it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger the more we actually do it, think about it, feel it. So Those are the important things to remember. And then associate each new piece of information, skill, or ability with something meaningful to you. So if it's something you hate to learn, you're like, I don't want to learn this. Do your best to take that, whatever you don't want to learn, and associate it with something that you love or that you enjoy doing or learning, or even associate it with a person. Make it meaningful to you somehow in order for that to solidify into your implicit memory banks, if you will. So animals and language. So animals do communicate. Language is a powerful tool that sets humans apart from other animals. So language, again, think about this. Language is a whole set of rules, right? So grammar is a set of rules. Language is our ability to communicate not just with others, but with ourselves. So do animals have language too? So we're going to explore the difference just a little bit here. So animals, they have communication. It's very instinctual. It's limited. It lacks the rules. It doesn't have grammar, right? They're not worried about syntax and where to place a period or a comma or prepositions to make meaning out of the things that they communicate. Animals communicate in fascinating ways. So bees actually dance to show where the food is, right? They move in certain ways to communicate with one another. Dolphins use clicks and whistles to communicate with one another. Dogs bark to express emotion. But is it language? We're talking about the difference now between language and communication. So human language is learned, it's complex, it's allows us to have abstract thoughts. It allows us to come up with new concepts, to be creative and innovative. If I ever see a dog pull apart a toaster and fix it, then we can talk about maybe they've got some higher level thinking as well. But so far that seems to be reserved for humans. So human language is different. So we aren't born with a fixed set of signals. We learn. Babies start with simple sounds. They babble. Then, words, they turn those into full sentences. So they have to be taught. This is not something that is, we instinctually communicate. We do not instinctually have language. It has to be learned. So this is because human language has structure. It has meaning beyond the present moment. So we often think about future things, past things, current things. Animals communicate in the here now, in the present moment, right? They're hungry. Maybe they're going to howl at you. I've got some cats, they meow at me and when they're hungry in the morning. Humans can talk, right, about their past, their present, their future. They can imagine new futures for themselves, new ideas, all sorts of wonderful things. So our ability to do that, to communicate all the wonderful things about what we think, feel, and do sets us apart. So some animals like Coco the gorilla and Alex the parrot have learned to use signs or words, but they don't have grammar and they don't have creativity. So what happens is, especially in gorillas, what they found is their ability to sign does not go beyond what a toddler would be able to do. So maybe a 1 or 2 year old child would be able to accomplish when it comes to language or communication. So language sets humans or lets humans share knowledge. We tell stories, we create entire civilizations, while animals have communication. Only humans have true language. So communication and language are totally different. So communication is a shared practice among all animals. However complex, language and the ability to evaluate, associate, and assign meaning to thoughts, feelings, and behaviors is what sets the human race apart from all other animals. So there you have it. That is our lesson on thinking and language. If you have any questions, please let me know. Send me a message, put in the comments, whatever works for you. So I hope you had a good time, and I'll see you.